Welcome guys, gals and non-binary pals to this week's episode of Buffy Boys, your weekly review of Buffy the Vampire Slayer from a queer, literary and feminist perspective. My name is Joel and with me as always is my sanitary co-host,
Brian.
Hi Brian, how are you? Welcome to the programme for the very first time we've recorded this episode.
Yeah.
These are strange times, these are weird times, we're all stuck inside, we're all considering in our deepest, darkest selves starting a podcast. You know, we've already...
You saw that tweet too?
I've seen many tweets to that effect, but the most sincere and effective advice we can give you in this trying time is check your microphones before you recording episodes, so you won't have to do it twice in 2 days.
Yeah. What happened, Joel?
I recorded using my laptop microphone.
I might actually... You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a really funny guy. I'm going to drop a little snippet of the audio into this episode of how it would have sounded.
It can be nostalgic. It'll remind you of our first 5 episodes.
Yeah. Fuck, eh?
Fuck. So we're not going to be...
This is all punishment for me calling it the viral load last week.
Yeah, you instigated this. Much as I'll stick in this episode.
I just had to Keen, our friend.
Friend?
He does live far away, so he doesn't really count as a friend these days. But I said to him that I was just about to record again, and he was like, "Oh, why's that?" And I was like, Joel used the wrong input. He recorded off his laptop microphone instead. And he was like, "Didn't that happen before?" I said, "Yes." And he was like, "Is that why I had to record an episode?" And I was like, "No, that was another thing that
Joel did."
Yeah.
Time is a flat circle.
Yeah. What it does mean is that I'm going to seriously consider just shelling out for a better audio setup.
Oh yeah, well see, this is any excuse for you to get some retail therapy, Brian. This has all been part of my plan.
But retail therapy might not be a thing for much longer.
This is true.
Because what is retail when there is no society?
So if you're looking for one of those podcasts that's going to distract you from the coronavirus and not mention it, that's not going to be this one, because this is crazy.
Yeah, it's like it's really ironic that Joker, the movie, came out this year, because like all that movie did was remind us that we live in a society. And that might not be the case for much longer.
I genuinely don't use the word ironic in any context anymore, because whenever I do, you just say, that's not what ironic means.
It's like rain on your wedding day.
It is. It's like loads of spoons and knives or whatever.
Yeah.
We still haven't seen Joker.
No, we haven't.
We probably should watch Joker.
No better time.
Yeah, when we're trapped inside with, you're
a mad person.
I'm not stuck in here with you, Brian. You're stuck in here with me.
There's no suggestion otherwise. Don't worry, I will never...
So before we get into our hotly anticipated banter segment, do you want to kick us off with Buffy and summary?
Yeah, sure. So this episode is season 4, episode 4, Fear Itself, which was first aired on October 26th, 1999. And here is your Buffy and summary. Oh, I'll do the written and directed by after that. The Scoobies attend a Halloween party. Blood spilled on a mystic rune. Part of decorations evokes a fear demon. Buffy is dragged into the depths. Willow's spell goes wrong. Oz starts to change. Xander becomes invisible. Anya, who arrived late, fetches Giles. Buffy accidentally releases the fear demon, which is small, so she stomps on it.
It was pretty utilitarian, but it's to the point. It's technically accurate.
Yeah. So it was written by David Fury. He last wrote Choices.
Choices.
We can't do this, Joel. We can't do every joke the same.
But we had this conversation the last time this happened. You act as if I go through life and use original content every time I speak anyway. I'm just recycling the same 4 jokes.
I have to use original content every time I speak because I can't remember anything. And it was directed by Tucker Gates. This is the only episode he directed. He also directed Alias. He directed a lot. He didn't just direct the show Alias. He directed a lot of Alias. He directed a lot of Lost. He directed an episode of Carnival, which I think was season 2, episode 6. But I noted it and then I forgot about it. It was like The Road to Damascus, I want to say, was the episode. Carnival, for those who are not in the know, was a 2004, 2005, I want to say, HBO TV show based on a traveling Dust Bowl era traveling carnival.
Yeah.
It was I think it was
shown partially by Ronald D. Moore.
Yeah, I want to say it was like executively produced by Ronald D. Moore. Yeah. He also did Battlestar.
But don't hold that against him.
Exactly.
It's probably most in the vein if you're a fan of Twin Peaks.
It's very Twin Peaks-y.
Very Twin Peaks-y.
It's super odd and really dramatic. I really loved it at the time. I haven't watched it since about 2011, so I couldn't tell you how well it stood up. But I think it's really, really good, personally. It was really, really beautifully set. Like, the settings of it were just immaculate. It's insane that they were able to get that budget. I think so it got cancelled after 2 seasons. Chloe Duvall, actually, was one of the main characters, and she's a Buffy.
Clancy Brown. Chloe Duvall, yeah, she's a Buffy alone, yeah.
Clancy Brown, absolutely. I'm very surprised Clancy Brown isn't in Buffy at any point.
Yeah, absolutely. The funny thing about Carrie Val, I don't know how we got started talking about Carrie Val, but
actually, one second, I'll finish this. And he also directed Bates Motel and a few episodes of The Sinner. In season 1.
We watched that, yeah. The weird thing with Carrie Val is like, yeah, it was very high production values, very elaborate, very intricate, and most likely got cancelled for many reasons because of the production cost of it.
Yeah.
But if that came out today, people would be like, oh, I don't know, 10 million for a TV show? Absolutely. Like, we'll spend, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Westworld must be costing HBO a fortune.
Did you ever watch any Alias? You mentioned that you directed a couple of episodes of Alias.
I would have watched like an episode or 2 of Alias when it, like, in the background when it was on RTE2 at 7 p.m. On a Tuesday kind of thing, you know, when you're waiting for the big movie to come out.
Yeah. It was a weirdly intricate show. It wasn't, I don't think it was good by any stretch.
Sorry, big movie was on Saturdays. The midweek movie was on Wednesdays.
You're going to get called out now by RTE fandom.
Exactly.
But yeah, so it was weirdly intricate. It was the only time I think I've watched a show, with the exception of the amount of Lost that I watched, where it was like an unfolding mystery every week. I had very pre-Da Vinci Code energy. So it was the Da Vinci Code analog was the whole point of the spy thing they were doing. There was, I think his name was like Romaldi or something, but he basically in 1592 he invented cold fusion or whatever.
Oh, cool.
So everything they found was like, God, he did another thing on a Thursday. He invented, Wi-Fi,
which is a thing that actually, funny enough, Fringe specifically did, but much better.
Yes, actually, yeah. It's a close analog to Fringe as well. And weirdly, why
do we talk about Fringe so much in this podcast?
Because Fringe is a fucking good show. Fringe, fellas, next show. But there was a guest episode of Alias that Quentin Tarantino was in, just as like a character, bizarrely. And this was, to be honest, it was at a time where I didn't know who Quentin Tarantino was.
But Quentin Tarantino loves genre pieces, and he loves pulp, you know. Yeah,
and my main memory of Quentin Tarantino, outside of all those films he's done, whatever, is a scene where he has captured Jennifer Garner in some wig. Jennifer Garner, not Quentin Tarantino, wearing the wig. And he offers her a bottle of water that he's drinking from, and he backwashes into it to make it like they've kissed.
Do people know what backwashing is? Is that like an international thing?
Well, that's the term he uses in the show.
Okay, cool.
And that's where I learned it. I was like, is this a thing that ever happens?
I mean, people used to, like, in my school, you'd be like, I don't want some of your drink because you probably backwashed. And there was a height of rudeness.
Absolutely disgusting.
Yeah. Absolutely, for sure. Crazy. Did he also lick her toes?
There was probably some fuck stuff in it as well.
Yeah. I was having to explain this to someone a couple of weeks ago. Was it? Well, were you there at the time? It was Spencer and Dara. We were talking to them, and we were saying, "Oh, there's probably an extensive scene in which toes were involved." And Spencer was like, "What? Actually, you know what? That's very mean of me." I presume it was Spencer who was unaware of this, but he's not the kind of person who would
know about Quentin Tarantino's foot fetish, which is fair enough.
And maybe he's better for it.
Yeah.
Maybe Spencer's the best of us.
Maybe just better person than us. So we're recording this at home on a Tuesday lunch break, in which I am invading Brian's personal and professional space on a protracted basis, due to that old virus is going around, which is real weird. And it's weird over here in Ireland as well, because we were actually recording today when St. Patrick's Day parade should be happening, which is catastrophically unusual for this country.
It is, and let's be real, St. Patrick's Day is usually, like, the parade and just the festivities around it are usually reserved for tourists. So Irish people, some will go to the parade and be like, oh, that's fun. Very few will go get drunk in Dublin, you know,
in Temple Bar.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very let's go to Golgotha.
So people who, like, there's a really fascinating earth cam pointed in Temple Bar at the Temple Bar pub, which is just a pub in Temple Bar that decided to call itself the Temple Bar to attract attention.
Yeah, so it's not named, just the Temple Bar area is not named after a bar, but this is like a retro inclusion kind
of. And basically, like, this morning it was all but, like, abandoned, which was terrifying. There was a streaker though as well, so that's fun.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Fun.
The coronavirus. The thing that I've seen that was most worrying was last night. Trump did a press conference and said that yeah, this could last until July or August. And like him like actually engaging with the potential ramifications of this is genuinely terrifying.
Yeah, but we also tweeted, like, I think this morning or last night saying,
yeah, Jesus Christ.
blaming it on saying that America will weather the
Chinese virus. Yeah, like, I mean, come on. Have you ever seen anything that have as strong a branding as the coronavirus?
Yeah.
Like, people are obsessed with the phrase coronavirus. No one is ever going to say the Chinese virus. Like, you can't get, Trump can't like rebrand a pandemic.
Yeah. You showed me a TikTok last night which was about coronavirus, about little girls dancing to some song or
that
something.
wasn't a TikTok. That was far too long to be TikTok, but it was just some...
Okay, so I don't know the intricacies of the
TikTok's going to be
metrics.
60 seconds long at very most.
Okay.
But yeah, so it was a couple of young girls in Ireland doing a Linger cover by the Zombies, except about the coronavirus is like I don't know, it's
Do
like...
you mean the Cranberries?
Did I say...
You said the Zombies.
Sorry. The Zombies are another band as well. Yeah.
Sure.
But it was like you can't linger, coronavirus. Please don't linger on my fingers.
It's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Pretty accurate in content and quality.
Thanks. Tara, who I work with, who listens to the podcast, I think she's a good bit behind, so she might not actually ever hear this, but said recently that she like
ever. What's going to happen?
I don't know. You never know, Joel. I might murder her. But she was saying recently that like she's like, oh yeah, apparently whenever she hears the song, or whenever she thinks of the song Lucky, she can hear me singing it from an early episode, which is quite funny. But she also like goes on about how bad a singer I am, and it's like fair, but also
you're not allowed to say that.
Well, you're not allowed to say that. But also, every single time I've ever sang on this podcast, it's been for maximum comedic effect.
Absolutely.
So here's me singing properly. Oh, holy night, the stars are bright. So now we're gonna have to cut that out. Let's go.
I hope that's the moment that someone's headphones come out while they're on public transport.
Yeah, me too. Public transport no longer a thing, so who cares?
People still use public transport here anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so weird times, but we're here with you through it, and we're suffering as well, so we can all suffer together. And as Buffy and her Scooby gang taught us, walks a little apocalypse between friends.
I'm really sad that we're not on Pangs. That would have been a great episode for this.
Yes, absolutely.
But you know what? We'll probably get Pangs during the coronavirus. Anyway.
So what we are on is Fear Itself.
Yeah.
And as you very effectively summarised there, this is a Halloween episode, boo boo boo. And we have the gang.
What was the Halloween episode of season 3? Was there one?
There's only one every 2 seasons.
Okay.
There's only 3.
What's season 6 then?
One that I'm not super familiar with. For just because I'm not super familiar with season 6. But a very structural episode.
Mm-hmm.
We have the gang in the opening of the episode basically enumerating their various fears and insecurities, and then going to a haunted house and go pull this Alpha Delta fraternity.
I think it was Alpha Delta, yeah. So it's usually 3, isn't it?
Not necessarily. I don't know. I don't know I don't care for the nomenclature, but not necessarily. And yeah, so in the haunted house, it's meant to be a spooky dooky haunted house, or actually what they call a scary house, as if a haunted house is like a localized term or something.
Here's a funny factoid for you. My 3rd favorite song by my favorite band of all time is Nomenclature.
Really?
Yeah, it's by Wussy.
Oh, very cool.
It's actually a cover of a CD Seeds song, I want to say, and it's a really, really good cover, and it makes me cry whenever I listen to it.
Okay. Oh well, it seems like perfect time to listen to it now.
Yeah.
Another weird one is in terms of Americanization, is they call bouncy castles bounce houses, which we realized recently, which I was very confused with what they're referring to.
Was that in this episode?
No, but just because scary house, I was like, what else does this remind me of? Someone said bounce house. I think it might be Love Is Blind. Anyway, so we have they go to this scary house, and to be honest, no one's really at fault. They're meant to be a scary house, and they draw some occult symbols on the floor, taken from something which we'll mention shortly. And Oz just kind of cuts himself by accident.
Jacking in.
Yeah, he's scraping the wire on his Casio.
He's trimming the wire,
whatever.
I mean, which is a totally done thing, you know.
Sure. because you know all about music. It's fine. He drops some blood.
That was a funny thing because he's literally jacking in.
Yeah, no, you're 100% he is.
And he cuts his hand, which is what your man does when he's jacking in. He's saying, "I'm jacking in," and he's carving into his arms. Anyway.
Call back for all the deep fans of
the OGs.
The OGs. He bleeds on the symbol
original
of
gaze.
Gaknar, the fear demon, who causes basically their fears and various fears to become manifest within the house. And we use this as in classic televisual style as a cipher to explore these characters' various insecurities as they travel through the house.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, we need to note that this is very closely related to the season 1 episode 11 or 10, I can never remember, Nightmares, which is the episode in which Billy, a young boy who plays baseball, has been abused by his coach and goes into a coma, and through hell mouth magic causes everyone in the vicinity to realize their fears in person, or their nightmares. So in that episode, one of the fears that for the Scooby gang, the fears they experience, Jaws experiences Buffy dying, which does happen obviously very soon afterwards, so that was prescient. We don't see Jaws' fears in this episode. He's more of a bit character in this episode. He's less integral to the plot.
A woodsman coming to rescue them.
Actually, yeah, very good point. Oh, nice. We have whereas in the episode Buffy experiences in Nightmares, Buffy's father comes along, I think in the only appearance by Hank Summers, and says no,
because he's in when she goes to the asylum as well.
Oh, he is.
He does actually appear in that episode, yeah. Which I always think is called Slayer Interrupted, but that's not the case.
No, it's not. So she experiences Hank coming along and saying, "Oh, listen, you were the cause of our divorce, and I don't want to hang around with you anymore. Sorry." So it's all been abandonment. Willow experiences her. She gets put on stage, and she's made which is very similar to Restless, and she's made to recite some lines she's not prepared for. She's kind of like shown as being like this kind of like geek and kind of just an addendum to the Buffy kind of mythos, essentially. And Xander experiences a fear of clowns.
Yeah.
So, cool. But obviously this does play into this episode because, yes, at the outset of the episode, we have basically the gang listing their fears in dialogue. That opens with, Buffy is experiencing just a lot of issues due to the Parker debacle. She feels like she's worthless and cannot be loved because of him, but realistically it's because of Angel, you know? So she says the gang are all sitting around in a very nice moment of carving pumpkins in Xander's basement apartment that he pays for. Did you notice that the door upstairs is just a curtain?
No.
It's not great. So that's fine. They're all carving pumpkins, and Buffy leaves her pumpkin having no face.
A faceless freak.
Faceless freak. And they're all like, okay, cool. And yeah, so she's moping, having been not so much broken up with. I was gonna say not so much broken up with, but foken up with. Because yesterday you referred to it as a breakup, and I said it more like a fake up. And I thought that was really funny. Because it's not really breakup, they aren't going out, they sleep together, that's not a commitment. Whatever. Anyway. So
starting to wrap all this up with Hank, with Angel, with Parker, it's all becoming a one big question of why does no one love me, essentially.
Yeah. And Buffy's inability to tell men apart, you know.
Face blindness.
Male blindness. No, that's not what I want to say. Anyway. So with that, Buffy and Willow are talking in the cafeteria. Willow says to Buffy that she's worried about, she wants to go further with her magic, and Buffy says she's worried about her losing control. So that's about right, you know.
And Willow says that college is the time for experimenting. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, for lesbian sex, basically. Yeah, wonderful. I mean, and that's true. Except, you know what I always feel very odd about is the trope of, do you know the lug trope?
Lesbian until graduation.
Yeah. It's a really vicious one on both ends, as in, there's a certain amount of, sexual experimenting that is, acceptable or non-acceptable, and it's kind of I don't know, that's the kind of identity politics that like, you know, determines behavior that I think is unnecessary.
Yeah, well, I think a nice way to close the loop on the other side is like, yeah, you know, experiments. Sometimes you do an experiment, it's a success, and then you patent something out of that. And, you know, experimentation is not necessarily something that like, well, that didn't work.
It's also, I was actually reading, I was thinking a lot about this recently because ContraPoints, who we've talked about before in this podcast, she then went on to have a much larger controversy right after we talked about that episode, which is really funny. And I still think it was reasonably unfounded, personally, for the most part.
Things have layers, and things have
layers, and I think she's a conscientious person who creates thought-provoking and genuinely positive, you know, influencing content. But she had a video recently where she came out as a lesbian, having previously identified as bisexual. But yeah, she identifies as a lesbian now, and she was kind of talking about how women's sexuality tends to be a lot less like very, I was gonna say very focused, but obviously sounds quite like phallocentric, or not phallocentric. She's basically just talking about how women's sexualities often isn't quite the bolt of lightning that people talk about men's sexuality with. So I mean, it's why a lot of queer men come out at a much younger age than queer women. You know, is that women are kind of told to really crave the attention of men. They're told to very much crave the comfort and strength that they can be given by men. And then additionally, it means that, you know, your sexuality and your experience of intimacy is all like wrapped up in this like kind of social safety issue. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, women experimenting is kind of like natural in that sense, because I mean, when you're given these cues by society that you have to be a one specific way, you know, even if you are that specific way, it's very hard to tell if you're that way because of innate feelings in yourself or because society is telling you to be that way. Yeah, well, it's like that was a very confused sentence.
No, I think it's very clear what you're saying. I think I apologize, I can't pull the writer's name offhand, but there was a tweet that went viral, or a statement that went viral from someone a couple of months ago, which is basically saying that the great struggle and the great process of queer people's adult lives is unpicking what parts of their personality are in any way genuine or essential or from the source, and which are
coping mechanisms and hiding mechanisms,
or reactions, or reflections, or integrations of things, and it creates a certain sense of like, yes, this is me, but it's a patchwork of like a lot of different influences, and there's a sense of inauthenticity of kind of like, is this me or not, you know, which is I don't think affects people who don't have to challenge and confront and construct their identity to the same extent. So I think, you know, looking back, we look at it now as almost a given, but integrating this so obliquely but seamlessly with Willow's exploration of magic, I think is actually a real lightning bolt.
It's a beautiful metaphor, I must say. So Willow is worried about experimenting with magic, and Buffy says
it's too fierce down there.
Buffy says try to dial it back a little bit, you know, don't go into like calling powers from beyond kind of thing. And Willow doesn't like this, and Oz kind of echoes Buffy's sentiment. But Willow obviously has a fear herself of losing control. She's recently seen in Doppelgangland what her personality can be like without inhibitions and without social constraint. I think maybe she liked it a little bit, or she was influenced by it. And then Xander, at one point, Anya comes along. She wants to have the sex with him again, which is, you know, fine. And she kind of says to him, oh, why do you even bother hanging out with him anyway? I.e. Buffy and Willow, they're so unlike you. Their lives have diverged from yours so extremely. So and that's his fear. And these are the fears that will continue to run through the season, but also then the show, really. Yeah, and it's one of these moments that's portrayed as Anya being very blunt, but like I think it wasn't that unusual thing she said. You know, it's a little tactless, but like he's just very sensitive to it. Where later in the show, she's actually just like eccentrically blunt. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think they do. The balance does trend away from truth teller with Anya, where Cordelia was blunt but very much a truth teller. You know, Anya starts as being a Cordelia. Surrogate, I want to say. But I think Spike's introduction leads there to be less, more truth telling from Spike as well, because Spike often comes along and says things that people are like uncomfortable truths.
Spike just fits the role so well.
Yeah.
But yeah, and less directly, and kind of it's a more, I was going to say more primal, boom, fear, but Oz's fear of his power and his lycanthropy and losing control does come up very much in this episode as well. And obviously his he's unusually articulate in this episode in terms of his fear and his concerns for Willow, which is something which is obviously echoed and continued with Tara and Willow's relationship and her fear of Willow's experimentation with power as well. So there's like a clear thread as we find that Willow has an addictive personality and is someone who is particularly susceptible to that kind of intoxication.
It's such an odd portrayal of Willow's character over a long period of time, is that those seeds are written quite early on, and it's great. Yeah,
well, if you think about it, like, these characters are these people who are high performing, who do put pressure on themselves, who are very constrained by social expectation.
Often drug addicts,
be it performance drugs, focus drugs, drugs for release, or
workaholics,
workaholics, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's actually kind of like it rings true.
It does.
But yes, we bring them all together to go to this scary house, and we have some very thematic costumes as well. We have obviously Xander dresses what he thinks James Bond looks like, because he wants some modicum of power and authority.
In case he turns into his costume, which happened a couple of years ago. Turned out really well for him, to be honest.
Yeah, actually, he got like a thing he can do for the rest of the show, which is just such like whenever they do that, the writers are looking directly down the camera lens, saying like, we know this is a cheat and we just need to do this. The fact that he was like, of all the various Monster of the Week things that happen to people over the course of the show, the fact that he can parlay this into getting into the initiative at the end of this season.
Does he?
He does, yeah. He uses his military knowledge to get into the initiative.
That's the last time though, right? Because I think in the future, like, they really do heavily lean on the Xander's just a carpenter.
Yeah, there might be some aspect of it in season 7 when they start rallying the potentials, but I think that's the big one, is he uses it to like basically to charisma check their way into the initiative. Cool. Buffy dresses as Red Riding Hood, and Willow dresses as in a fantastic costume as Joan of Arc.
Yeah, she looks like she is every queer woman. I'm sure she is every queer woman's soft butch like fantasy. She looks just stunning, because she has that kind of slightly shorter college queer haircut. She's wearing armor, chainmail armor. Like, she looks incredible.
Yeah, and we think about this. We were like, we're pretty certain Joan of Arc is like a lesbian icon, but we're like, are we just assuming that? Or is it, like, I pulled that from somewhere.
Yeah, I really do. I mean, I'm maybe it's that like Willow's a lesbian.
You've
icon.
Associated the two.
Maybe, but I'm fine with Joan of Arc being a queer icon.
Absolutely,
or queer woman icon.
And Oz goes with a name tag that says God, which one of my few inspired moments in my life has to be going to a Halloween party as Oz, as God, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Actually, very relevantly, you also wore a t-shirt that had it was an Earthworm Jim and
Evil Dead
mashup, and Evil Dead, some relevance here, because Giles does come along to free the guys with the chainsaw.
Yeah, so when
he brandishes it very Evil Dead style. He
does. So when they get into the house and kind of it all breaks down, they all get separated, and Gaknar, this fear demon, is instigating these various fears and making them real, or making them appear real, to generate fear, which is going to feed on eventually Anya arriving at the house and dressed in her trademark scary costume of a bunny rabbit, realizes that the door has disappeared. She sees a girl banging on the window disappears.
Actually pretty seamless CGI. Not seamless, actually, that's the opposite of the word I mean, but like,
it moved quick passable enough. Yeah, passable. Yeah, I feel that window disappearing on the frat house is an image that stuck with me from Buffy. Like, it's in that bucket of images that like come back for me. But then she goes to get Giles, and he comes along with as a very solid adult character with a chainsaw, and she's like oh, you have something like a spell that can make a door, and he's like, I can make a door, and then like uses the chainsaw to cut his way through the house, which is very powerful for me.
So Mark Fields and Rhonda Wilcox have both highlighted this episode as being a blueprint episode We have seen previous Blueprint episodes.
Blueprint. Ooh.
Blueprint. I'm trying to remember what the season 3 one is, but season 2 has certainly lied to me. In which Buffy has a boyfriend who goes evil, gets turned into a vampire, and she has to kill while questioning her existential issues, which, as you may have noticed by what I just said, that is literally the structure of both the episode and the season. What do we call those again, Joel?
So like that, like this, along with lies, means some episodes are very much, a synecdoche of the theme and the thrust for the season. So what does Mark feel?
Actually, you know what it was? It was Revelations was the season 3, because Revelations was a new, is Faith betraying Buffy and them having to question each other, etc., etc.
So what does Mark Field say about this?
So they're basically suggesting about this episode is that what happens in this episode is that the gang have to face their weaknesses. They get split up. They have to look at the fact that they cannot overcome this hurdle together, and ultimately do have to come back together to regain focus, which is what happens in the season 4 conclusion. Not finale, I mean Primeval versus Restless, in which the guys have been splintered and do have to come back together to see the power that they have all together, in becoming the heart, the mind, the body, and the spirit. Or the will, sorry.
I think it might be spirit, it's just I call it the will because her name is Will.
No, it's the will.
Okay.
Yeah. So Buffy actually has a really lovely conversation in this episode with Joyce. Joyce making a very welcome return. Where Joyce is talking about how she hasn't, really recovered from the abandonment of Hank to some degree. She feels that she lost her life. She didn't make any friends for the whole first year that she lived in Sunnydale. She's no longer the social butterfly she used to be, and it doesn't help, of course, that her last boyfriend was a psychotic robot, which it clarifies that Joyce actually does know that Ted was a robot.
Yeah, thank God.
She probably didn't at the time, but she certainly does now. That must have been a really nice conversation at the beginning of season 3, being like, oh, by the way, Mom, here's a list of things I had to hide from you.
Here's someone I didn't murder.
Yes. Or, well, here's someone who is dead, but also definitely won't be coming back anyway. So that's good.
Your abuser will not return. Yeah.
But actually, lovely conversation. And one of the things that Joyce says is that these things are going to seem less like big issues than they do now.
Absolutely. And I think Joyce Joyce is one of the few interesting parental characters in almost any television show.
She's nuanced.
They're nuanced. And I think when she talks about how challenging it was for her when Hank left, and the fact that it wasn't about Buffy, he does love Buffy, but he clearly, while Hank does love Buffy, he didn't care enough to continue being part of her life. Do
you take that as being like a programming note, or do you take it as being a thematic note? Do you think that they would have gotten that actor back more often if they could have?
No, because I don't think so.
I've always read it as being a casting issue.
I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. Because this show makes a very deliberate choice about when to include pairings, and as I said before, I think the lack of Willow's parents or Xander's parents in any appreciable form in this show, bar one or two scant appearances, is very deliberate. So I think the fact that Buffy's father kind of left and is initially there when she's 16 and then just doesn't really care enough is a very, very intentional part of her personality. Even the fact that he doesn't come back significantly after Joyce dies is terrible. But I think Joyce discussing this about Hank adds more context to her in the earlier seasons when, as we say, she was kind of portraying a restrictive, a parental, a nagging role for Buffy, but it always was tempered by, you can't, she's not villainous. You can kind of always see where she's coming from. And now looking back now, imagining her moving to Sunnydale with Buffy, trying to start a new art gallery, or whatever, and having this girl who she wants to help but is just doing these bizarre things. You can appreciate
burning fucking gyms
and then just disappearing out during the night and dating college guys and all this. I can imagine Joyce sitting at home with a glass of Merlot trying to figure out what to do. I feel sympathy for her.
At 12 o'clock in the afternoon, taking a sip of wine.
Wine, I should go and do that now.
Wait, have you not been whining all day?
Very good.
So, ultimately what happens is that the house, we discussed this yesterday at a good bit of length, but it does seem like the house doesn't actually have any physical effects on the context it's in. Or maybe some degree it has effects on its own structure.
It's impermanent.
Yeah, but at one point a skeleton stabs Buffy, and they don't actually find any blood or anything. Oz is turning into a werewolf, and he has a very sad, very traumatized little moment where he's sitting in a bathtub just saying, I don't want to change, or I won't change, which is just very upsetting. But it does seem that the sole purpose is to drive them all to this one spot in the house. It doesn't actually have any physical effects. So the only permanent change it does is that Josh, one of the frat boys, gets scared into running down a stairs and breaks his neck, which is pretty gross.
My feeling is that, I don't think the whole thing is all starts to wolf out when it's not a new moon or it's not a full moon.
And he scratches Willow, and we figure that the reason that there's no concern over that is because it's not real.
Yeah, I don't think that Gaknar would have the ability to supersede the wolf magic. Do you know what I mean? So I think that it all is illusory, which I didn't actually catch the first few times I watched this episode.
Would you believe I don't think we've ever watched this show in this depth before?
It is true. But yeah, it's within the house itself. It's a very structural approach in terms of, the bringing all the different horror genres just out for a tasting menu. It has, your vampire bats. It has your zombies in the basement, skeletons.
The skeleton had a very Evil Dead 2 moment with the eyeballs and everything.
Yeah, the eyeballs. It had it even has like a severed head, like shouting things at people.
Very
big
Exorcist.
Spiders, Exorcist, all that kind of stuff. And I like that because I like the fact that Buffy as a show, what people reduce Buffy to when they're a bit of a distance from it is that it's just quips and sarcasm and meta and everything's so meta, etc. But it's actually more than happy to say, oh no, like these comics we read when we were younger, these R.L. Stein, Goosebumps, or Crypt Keeper kind of things, which were kind of hokey looking back now, but were really evocative and really scared us. Like, they're still kind of scary, and it plays all of those scares in this episode straight.
It does, yeah. It's actually what I just thought there. It's one of the major things that's missing from Angel is that Angel tries to be gritty but never remembers to bring the horror.
Yeah.
Or the classic horror. Anyway, so I had a bit yesterday about language. It didn't...
Was it about language?
Yeah, about like... So one of the things I was reading yesterday, and I've lost the fucking page note because I took it out yesterday after we had finished recording. So I'll find it now. So basically, Karen Eileen Overbay and Lanny Preston Matto write in Staking and Tongues, speech act as a weapon in Buffy. Just as a quick note about language, because Joel told me I can say it because he thought it was interesting, so that's fine. Is Giles's role as translator and occasionally incomplete speaker reveals itself as potentially hazardous in Fear itself. Giles is quite concerned when he realizes that Gaknar the fear demon is about to manifest. He frantically flips through books looking for a way to prevent its appearance. I have it. The summoning spell for Gaknar can be shut down in one of two ways. Destroying the mark of Gaknar, Buffy drops to one knee and punches through the floor, destroying Gaknar's icon. While Buffy looks smug, Giles continues reading, is not one of them and will in fact immediately bring forth the fear demon itself. Buffy is too impatient to wait for wiser heads to prevail or even to let Giles finish his translation of the sentence. But Giles has made a mistake here too. The illustration of Gaknar is formidable. When Gaknar manifests, he's only 6 inches high, and Buffy promptly stomps him with an impeccably well-heeled boot. The final scene of the episode reveals Giles saying, "Oh bloody hell, the inscription." When Buffy asks what is wrong, he acknowledges, I should have translated the Gaelic inscription under the illustration of Gaknar. It says he is forced to tell Buffy, actual size. The rules of language must be obeyed. Giles must be allowed to finish a sentence, but he's also obliged to complete the translation of all relevant material before passing it on to the gang. If it does not, there may well be dire consequences. So this is all very interesting for an episode in which the text in the book that the guys use to grab the icon, which they paint on the floor of their frat house, which is what starts this whole thing, is actually a bunch of Irish gobbledygook that they grabbed from some online source that actually we've talked about in this podcast before, but actually translate to, there's a new bus corridor opening in Dublin.
Yeah, the most unimpressive of Irish passages. They're paying you to say Gaelic.
Yeah, it does. It does pay me to say Gaelic. Thank you.
So yeah, it's a surprisingly, not surprisingly, a welcome comedic episode.
It is comedic, yeah.
When it comes, there's good comedy in terms of, I appreciate that in the opening scene when they're carving the pumpkin, Xander rents Fantasia instead of Phantasm.
Yeah.
2 films I've never seen.
Mm-hmm.
But one, Phantasm is probably the main horror series I haven't seen, which I would like to see. In terms of classics, but it's
also about a very short man, right?
yeah, it's the very short man. No, it's the original is 1979. It's by Don Coscarelli, and it features a monster, an alien called the Tall Man, played by Angus Scrimm, whose defining characteristic is that he is very tall. And he basically comes through graveyards from a different dimension to quote unquote capture corpses to change into dwarf slaves for his home planet. But there's been like 7 of these, and it's actually very similar, not very similar, because a lot of relation to this episode in terms of that there's a lot of fear association, there's reality bending, there's kind of weird disappearing doors imagery and just otherworldliness. So I thought that was like a nice little note. But yeah, it's comedic, and the ending where Buffy basically could cause the apocalypse initially, but then just has the guy's just actual size is genuinely very funny. And I think that the guy who played Gaknar, like, it's very elaborate makeup for a throwaway joke. Like, he looks like
it's really well designed.
It's really well designed. It's very Clive Barker. It's very Pinhead in Hellraiser. Yeah, it's great, and
it's kind of BDSM horror kind of stuff.
It is, and I think that that's very evocative of that kind of era of horror, in the sense of like around the kind of late 70s, early 80s, you're moving away from the classic moral tropes and the classic fairy tale tropes towards kind of more psychosexual stuff that doesn't necessarily have religious imagery to it.
We won't get around to talking about, because obviously we probably should have talked about it on the beginning of this episode if we're going to do it ever, but we went to see The Invisible Man last week. Very Buffy adjacent. A bit messy structurally, could have been 20 minutes shorter at the very least. 100% worth a watch. Elizabeth Moss is wonderful, and I was fucking terrified watching it.
It's actually a genuine, without kind of like bragging or anything, but we've watched a lot of horror films. We've watched a good few thrillers. It's a little difficult to actually make us continually tense, I think. And it
was all done through like really stunning cinematography and
just great cinematography, great sound design, tense acting, and then just amplified to 15 by the fact that we went to see it in IMAX. And in the opening scene,
fucking loud.
The opening scene, someone's sneaking through a house and kicks a dog bowl, causing a clatter, and it was like a gunshot went off next to my ear. Yeah. So that kind of made it maybe a bit too like that kind of fourth cup of coffee tweakiness.
This was pre-isolation, so we were loud. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, this episode is actually really comedic, and what's really odd about it is that it's comedic external to the characters. So it's not POV comedic. Similar to how Xander's POV very much influenced the Zeppo in creating in casting all of Angel and Buffy's drama in a very comedic light in that episode. Whereas his tone was very light and fluffy and silly. In this episode, it feels like the writers are imposing a POV onto the characters because the characters are not let in on the comedic joke here. So at the very end, when the Giles has a line about actual size, it's the editing, the very quick cut to black at the end of the episode with no music that really drives home the comedy. We should also note what happens in the house itself is that Willow tries to do some magic, and her and Buffy start to fight because of it, because Buffy doesn't think that, she says her normal spells are only 50-50, and this is calling something from the beyond to show them the way to the center of the house. And
it gets suggested that they're fighting in part because the house is influenced.
Yeah. So because one of the things that Willow shouts after Buffy is, "I'm not your sidekick." Buffy then gets abandoned by all her friends, and that's Buffy's fear, is that she will be abandoned, and she ends up in the basement, chided by a dead body. Xander goes invisible, and no one can see or hear him, and obviously he's worried about being left behind, forgotten, invisible, uncared about. And Willow also casts her spell, but then the spell quickly goes beyond her control. She casts a bunch of different little spirits into existence, which start to attack her in a very acid trip, get them off me kind of way.
Yeah, I think the suggestion is they start to attack her because she is indecisive about what she wants the spirit to do.
Yep.
So they split, and it's again the lack of focus, control, and maturity has caused this to happen. Which is kind of right to because she is afraid of what Oz is talking about, and she doesn't want to admit it. Yeah.
Anyway, so should we move into dusting?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So a couple of Buffy bits for you, Joel, which will be completely new to you. I found a completely new Buffy bits.
Okay, I wasn't listening the first time. So.
Great. Okay, so the character of Edward, who is one of the frat boys at the very beginning, who I think he's the one who actually paints the mark onto the floor. He was played by Walter Emmanuel Jones, who was Zach Taylor, the original Black Ranger from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
The Mighty Morphin's a very important part of that.
Yes, of course. And after we recorded last night, Joel put on Power Rangers. So that's great.
Walter Jones was teaching some hip-hop dance moves to Billy, who's the gay nerd in Power Rangers. I was like, this is all very appropriate. Yeah.
Wow. This is the same house that was used in seasons 1 and 8 of American Horror Story, the murder house.
Does the murder house come back in season 8?
It does, apparently.
Oh, gosh.
Or they filmed something else there. I don't know. We only watched season 1 of American Horror Story to completion. Season 2 and 3, I think we dabbled in. Season 1 was great for about 5 episodes and then quickly became insufferable.
It became very stressful.
Yeah. This is the final episode of the show with no vampires because obviously previous or future episodes will pretty much all have Spike. This is the episode in which Riley begins appearing as a regular, which is fun. And there is a very awkward moment in which Buffy's talking to Joyce about her father bringing her trick-or-treating and how she was just a beard for him to get candy. And we both noted yesterday that's gay slang for when you're dating someone to hide your own sexuality. So that was a very uncomfortable little...
Yeah, it's a weird pull, and I think it's funny because it obviously kind of made me think about the fact that beard is probably a euphemism in the sense of like, the beard imposes masculinity on the traditionally effeminate gay man, which is just ironic in the sense that every second fucking gay guy is using a beard to make up 50% of his personality these days.
Oh, I would never say that about you, Joel. Do you have any Buffy bits?
No, I think you kind of covered. My big one was going to be about Zach Taylor.
Very good. Oh, sorry for stealing that from you.
That's okay.
So fashion notes, obviously, fashion galore in this episode. To start with, in a non Halloween fashion note, Xander is wearing a really awful red shirt in this episode, and the only positive there is that his arms look pretty big in it, which is nice. He also wears a really gross baggy brown coat at a later point in the episode for absolutely no fucking reason.
There's a lot of flat boys. A lot of frat boys wearing just puka shell necklaces and frosted tips and bright primary colored shirts. And
because why not?
Why not? Yeah.
The obvious great fashion notes of this episode, and I think for me, unless something really brilliant comes along, Willow in her Joan of Arc costume is going to be my fashion pick of the season. I think. Buffy's wearing a Red Riding Hood costume to I was going to say dance or ball, but party, of course. Which is quite significant in the sense that she is, the girl who people overlook. They see her as just being a defenseless young woman, but she's actually capable of much more. Red Riding Hood-esque. Xander has really awful hair still. Giles is wearing a culturally inappropriate sombrero, but he does have a really wonderful part where he's pulling on a decoration from the top of the ceiling and shouting, "It's alive!"
Yeah, it's right. I like it,
and it's wonderful.
I wish he'd come to my house for a party.
I wish he'd make me feel alive.
Yeah, and also there's a guy at the frat party who is dressed as Bob Marley and is wearing a hat that has dregs attached to it.
Okay.
And this person, we believe, was a white person. So it wasn't good.
Great. Okay. Death count.
Just Josh, through his own negligence in this adventure.
Gaknar.
And Gaknar got squishy squashed. But yeah, Josh just took a back fall and died.
He did. It's been a reasonably low death count season so far.
Mm-hmm.
Though I think that changes as we go on. Okay, do you want to give a rating?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would probably give this episode probably a 9.1 heretical lesbian icons.
Okay, pretty great.
I think it's a classic for me. Again, it's in that bucket of would show to a potential viewer. I think it's actually quite self-contained in that fact.
Sure is.
I enjoy its reverence of kind of classic horror. I enjoy the structure. I think everyone did a great performance. And also, I think keenly, this is a return to form in the sense of the Scooby Gang are all together. They're all on reasonably good terms with each other. There is a lack of or a conclusion of the kind of the heavy, emotional, fractured, existential themes, which are great, but have run for about 6 or 7, 8 episodes now. And now it's just kind of space for it to be like, okay, what's the plot of this season?
Sure.
To a certain degree. And I enjoy that.
Yeah, I liked it too. I found it, so I'm going to give it 8.8 Freaks With No Faces out of 10. I found it tonally, or weight-wise, maybe a bit lacking. I like my Buffy episodes either super weighty or like hilariously comedic, or both at the same time. Whereas this was kind of dipped its toes in both and didn't quite fully commit to either. But I think it's a very, very, very good episode. I think it's very serviceable. I think it's probably the lesser Blueprint episode so far.
Sure.
Because I do love Light to Me and Revelations. But yeah, really liked it. The budget is getting put to good use here. For the most part, decent CGI, decent production. And yeah, the cast all speaking very, very confidently in their own voices.
Absolutely.
Okay, shall we do the Cordelia Chase?
If I have to.
Yeah, what was the episode?
It was I Fall to Pieces.
Yeah.
It was not good.
It was shit.
It is probably one of the worst episodes of Angel.
Of the Buffyverse.
Of the Buffyverse.
Because the next episode of Buffy, Beer Bad, is often considered to be the worst episode of Buffy. And I'd sooner watch Buffy or Beer Bad any day than I Fall to Pieces.
But let's talk briefly about what the problems are. So the issue is that they're trying to do this template for Angel where they're a detective agency. They take cases. It's kind of an interesting, quote unquote, new person every week. And it just steps away from a lot of the things that make Angel and Buffy quite enjoyable. So you have a woman who has an eye operation, and the neurosurgeon has been stalking her.
Stalking her.
So he's gone to a yogi, he's learned energy healing, something with 10% of the brain, whatever. He can now separate his hands from his body, his eyes from his body, and use these to fly around and menace people. There's a very specific problem with this episode, which we'll mention briefly, or not briefly, shortly. But although
it doesn't warrant engaging with.
No. But kind of overall part of the issue is they spent an inordinate amount of time at the top of the episode just with the woman in her corporate life, with none of her characters. And the show doesn't lend itself to actually realistically portraying actual normal people. And there's just a very episodic, kind of half-baked feel to it. And the themes of it are muddled. It's just boring to a large degree, but also none of the characters really get a lot of opportunity to be themselves. Like Cordelia is always likable. I think Doyle Doyle doesn't have a long run on this show, but I think he has the hint here of he could have been a stronger character with a development run, but really it's kind of extricable, in terms of just like, this is what you're afraid people would think a show like Angel or Buffy is like. And one of the specific issues is it's all about this woman being harassed and stalked by this guy, which can be a relevant thing to talk about if done well. But in this instance, they're like, oh, he bought her a cake and she didn't want a cake. Oh, he says they're engaged and she doesn't really know him. Oh, he's separating his hand and sending it to her house to digitally assault her while she sleeps.
Like sexually assault.
Sexually, yeah. So all of these things are... Yeah, sorry, that makes it sound like that he hacked her Facebook.
No, like digits as in fingers.
With his fingers.
It's just like they use it as like a note for the episode. It's like, oh, here's a thing that he can, like, wouldn't this be an interesting scene? And it's like, no, it wasn't an interesting scene. It was macabre. And
it's almost portrayed as comedy, but it has the same problem as like Go Fish, where it's like these things aren't like, it's genuine. It's not, there's no funny. You have to be incredibly good at what you're doing to get any kind of humor or inclusive comedy or
you need to be showing it from a woman's perspective.
Exactly, yeah. Like it's like preparing one of those fugu fish where if you cook it the wrong way it will kill you with its neurotoxins. I read a lot about those fish last night, so they're at the top of my brain. But like 99.9% of the ways that you do it is fucking awful, and this was awful. Like, I wish I hadn't watched it. I didn't enjoy watching it.
No.
But other episodes of Ranger are good, but this one wasn't. I would give this I will probably have to give this one fail feminist gesture. I gave it a 2 yesterday. I thought about it. I was like, that was generous.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to a 1 as well.
One, yeah.
Fail feminist gesture.
The more I think about it, it's like I didn't enjoy watching that episode.
No. Okay, that's enough for us for this week. Next week is going to be Beer Bad. I'm excited for it. I'm really hoping that this episode has recorded right.
I think we should give this episode another run tomorrow. Just really nail it on the 3rd try.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so that's us for this week. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you're well in strange times. I know you're going through your podcast backlog. And here we are with you as well. So keep on trucking. What would Buffy do? That's what I always say to myself in this kind of circumstance.
WWBD.
Exactly.
What would Brian do?
Tell your friends, tell the person trapped in the apartment with you to listen to Buffy Boys with you next week.
And to wash their hands.
Wash their hands. Okay, we'll see you next time on Buffy Boys.
Buffy Boys.
See ya.
See ya.
Wash your hands.